Hello and welcome to the third installment of my tutorial series on Defense of the East. Today I'm going to talk Triple T for tips, tricks and tactics. I know why that I said last time that it would be strategy, but I think we probably need to start with this first before we do something else. So first I'll talk sort of generic tips and tricks, and then I might talk about some specific tactics for different warships and different situations. Anyway, let's start. The very first thing that you really want to do is get your air scouts out. Getting the air scouts out is really important. You need to know what's happening. You should be sending them out from your land bases as well as from your planes. For air scouts, you don't want to have any ammunition loaded because that significantly reduces the endurance. See, we've got Wellington here, which are 652. If I give them nothing, it's 815. It's a third increase. You don't need to send all of them. Send one. That's sufficient. It will see something. It's less of a loss if it gets shut down. One is enough. Wellingtons here from Calcutta are excellent. Visakhapatnam has Catalinas. Again, don't need the torpedoes. Save them. Send one, and it has nice 1,000 miles out. You can send them here, sort of something like this. And there's 4 of them. You can cover a lot of ocean here. Madras doesn't have anything good for these. Blenheim is sort of okay for short. It's 400 miles. It's about somewhere here. Probably actually the best way for scouts from Madras is to scout this area, because the AI really likes to go and bomb, at least in my version, Kokanda and Visakhapatnam. It seems to be like it's one of its preferred targets together with Trincomalee. So sending, I don't know, 2 Blenheims this way, 3 Blenheims this way. Mohawks have 400 miles again, setting somewhere here, just around here, really, something like this. Saturating the area is really good. Bombay might have Blenheims, but yeah, you can see that it's not really going to achieve anything. Trincomalee has the most of planes that you have here, and again the Blenheims are decent with the 600 miles. Everything else is not so decent, and you will probably use Catalinas here from Colombo. There are also Catalina in Cochin, but actually no, there aren't. Okay, I thought that there were. But it's not really that great. Then, of course, let me get a new C unit. Let me get something like... it should get 2 things. Brooklyn and... let me get a town class. Oh, I have to get it from somewhere else. So what can I get? That's here. So here we have 2 light cruisers. Boise here, which has Kingfisher, and Newcastle here, which has a Walrus. Walrus of those 2 is the worst plane. It has considerably lower endurance than the Boise has. But here is a trick number 1. You can use the scouts and launch them through this. But you can also launch them through this. And there is a massive difference. When you launch them through launch aircraft, you can choose the payload. And you can see how it changes the endurance. It's by good 70 miles, so more than a third. And you can do the same thing afterwards. So you can tell it to patrol. Yeah, whatever. If you launch it, well, we'll have to wait a bit. Let me just move the Newcastle a bit, and we will see how is it. Okay, so if you launch it directly, it puts the depth charges on and has it here. Do not, if you don't care about your endurance, that's fine. If you do care about your endurance, launch the scouts through launch aircraft, because that gives you the ability to select payload. Here with my Kingfisher, it's 100 miles of extra endurance. That's like a fourth, but it's 100 miles. It's a lot. It's a massive amount, especially given that normal Walrus has less than 200 miles when it's loaded and 260 when it's unloaded. Yeah, it's half of taking depth charges of Kingfisher, which you're not going to use ever. I used it in all the time that I played campaign. I used 4 times, I believe, and I don't mean just the Defense of the East, I mean all of the campaigns. I used 4 times depth charges on my scout planes. So you don't need them. You should go always for the endurance. As I was saying before, you do want to cover reasonably well the area around your task forces. You probably always want to have at least 3 planes out. There are different patterns that you can run. You can either run 3 planes, each covering 120 degrees, like a third of the circle, or you can run them sort of behind each other, the whole circle, so that they basically cover the areas after sort of each other. I think that's actually slightly better if you do have the endurance to run them in the like the whole circle spaced by 120 degrees. You don't want to run them too far away. That's like ideally, if you have more planes, you want to run an inner and an outer scouting circle. But those are things that you have to work out what works for yourself. I would not run too long a circle if you have 100 miles. It takes a long time. There are gaps in this that the enemy can sneak through. If you run them in 40 miles, it might be too late for you to notice something. As I said, the best is if you can run 2 circles. I know I don't do it myself because it's pain. Like I would really like to go and it's a pain, especially because there is a bug which sometimes sort of kills these patrols and you have to restart them and so on. In terms of automation, there is many things that the game could do better, but it's not there, so there is no point in complaining about it. Anyways, let us move onwards. Each ship has ammunition, and here is Boise, as you can see, really the best ship, in my opinion, that you can get for your money. And it looks like it has plenty of ammunition. Say the rear magazine is 780, the front magazine is 1100, almost 1200. That's something like 1950 total ammunition, and that looks great. But because it has 15 tubes, and then they fire every every 7.5 seconds. This is actually 16 minutes firing. 16 minutes firing is less than many of my engagements last. Admittedly, the fight itself usually lasts about 10 or so minutes, so this is maybe 1.5 fights. 1.5 of serious fighting. Not a huge amount, if you ask me. So you will go through your ammunition very quickly, especially in cases of a very efficient ship, something like Boise. So what can you do about it? Well, the answer is not a great deal. You can always rearm the ship, but rearming the ship costs. I've got here a Bangor quickly class because I cannot do rearming of Boise here in Colombo because Colombo doesn't have engineering and fuel. So here in Bombay I've got something. The good news is that if you try to rearm a ship which is fully armed, it won't do anything. The bad news is when I rearm, let me just check here, it's 1000, 100, and 100, so it's very easy to calculate. The bad news is when I rearm a ship like this, it will use 50 supplies, 5 engineering, 10 fuel, no matter what it is rearming. So it doesn't matter whether it's Banger, the patrol class as you had there, or whether it's this old Revenge class battleship from World War I that's going to shoot eventually because its turrets are really slow. I bought it just so that I can show the point. Get us somewhere. We need to shoot. See? And off we are. So I have shot something, and my Adu Atoll situation is 550-50. And I'm going to rearm it. And my Adu Atoll situation is 445-40. So I used exactly the same amount of supplies, engineering, and fuel rearming this massive battleship as I used this small patrol class. So it's not very fair, but unfortunately that's what it is. That's the reality. So you can spend your supplies, ammunition, and fuel in rearming, and it's actually not too bad because 10 fuel, 5 engineering, it's okay. It's actually cheap on engineering. It's a bit more expensive on the supplies. You are getting with the 1300 supplies and close to 100 engineering and so on, you basically can rearm 20 times a week. So if you are rearmed 20 times a week and you have 2 task forces each for with 10 ships, that means effectively that you can rearm the 2 task forces once a week. But it also means you can't do anything else with your ammunition and so on. So your bases also need supplies, engineering, and fuel, both to maintain them and to replace the planes. So realistically, it's more like 10 rearming that you would need, that you would be able to afford each week. And as you said, it's for something like a destroyer or something very small, it's not really that worth it. So a trick that you can use to make your rearming a bit cheaper, or rather it's cheaper, you will trade your rearming for your command points effectively. And I don't mean for real command points, because it's more like for command points that you cannot use but are held in reserve if you need to. Because what you can do is you can go and release the ship, and that will take it away for 9 days, 8 days, and that means that when she comes back in 8 days, she will be fully rearmed. But you've now effectively hidden 2 command points somewhere where you cannot use them, because the ship is gone for 8 days and you cannot use it. It's useful for small ships, for destroyers and so on, because the holding of 2 command points is not a great deal, but it's something that you cannot really do easily with a battleship or a carrier, because that's 100 command points, and you do not have the options. Even if you had the command points, there is only one indomitable. You cannot send it off and take another indomitable. You would have to take formidable, assuming that you haven't taken formidable already. So it's a valid strategy for smaller ships, destroyers and below. With the light cruisers, it may be okay-ish if you don't mind sort of keeping a bit more command points in this sort of stash around. For anything like a heavy cruiser and so on, it's definitely not something that I would recommend. When we are talking about releasing ships, there is another thing that we have. and that's damage. So here we have this is a load from my campaign, the Greek destroyer, as you can see, and it has two types of damage. It has a cell which is slightly damaged, so you can see that here's an integrity 83 versus integrity 100 on this, and then it has cells which are entirely destroyed, and that makes a lot of difference when you are releasing your ships. It does difference if its cell is just gray, um, it's still 8 days for the ship to come back. Every black cell, I believe, adds 5 days to the repairs, and worse yet, every black cell drops the, if it's flooded, which it will be most of the time when it's below, it subtracts significantly from the speed, and it subtracts significantly from efficiency. Every destroyed every destroyed cell attracts 3% from efficiency. I cannot exactly remember the numbers for speed because it depends on the combination of destroyed and flooded, I believe, and it's if it's engineering that's destroyed, it's more. Similarly, if it's a bridge that's destroyed, then the efficiency drop is bigger, and so on. So basically, your ships as they come are less efficient. They already have some damage, so they are they are more likely to become badly hurt. See, this has an engineering integrity 62, so it only needs to take half as much damage to be permanently destroyed. Therefore, I would suggest, and that's definitely what I was doing, is the moment that your ship has any damage, and in this case it was a battle and she received 2 permanent damages, you just go and release it. It's not worth losing a ship. There are, of course, situations where you do want to keep them because you just need to, because for example, it's not worth releasing carrier for 1 damage if you were unlucky enough and suffer in some battle a small damage. You should never get your carrier into any naval battle that you can't win from distance. If you sort of it depends what you want to your carrier. So like, what sort of escort do you want your carrier to have? I know that I had quite a heavy escort with the carrier. In reality, you probably don't need to. That was more for fun, so she could sort of run the battles. But if you want to win, you really don't want your carrier to have any other escorts than a quick destroyer and run away with it from anything that's air. But you can still come under air attack, and if you're lucky, you will suffer only minor damage. And then it's probably not worth sending the carrier back for very lengthy repairs, because it will deprive you of a very, very important strategic asset for a very long time. But with a destroyer, send it back, get a new one. Which leads me to another advice, which is a bit of something between tip and trick. If you are in a battle that you cannot win without losses or without significant damage, run. There are times when running is by far the best strategy. You may want to have something like, okay, I'm going to run this battle and I know I must get significant damage, for example, on my heavy cruiser, because I will sink a carrier. That's fine. That's acceptable. You really need to sort of look at the costs and benefits. If you have I would argue that even sort of running with your heavy, like if your heavy cruisers are relatively low on ammo and you encounter a small task force of 4 destroyers, run. Just don't care about them. Yeah, it's not worth you spending the ammunition that you would have to go back and replenish to sink 4 destroyers. Yeah, your task force should have more important things in mind than sinking 4 destroyers, unless those 4 destroyers are the last 4 destroyers, or very close to hitting the 200 ships barrier to get the extra to get the extra supplies and everything, because otherwise it's just not worth it. Yeah, I do it in the campaigns, but that's mostly for the fun of it, because I want to show something. I don't want to run things for like 5 episodes, not engaging anything or engaging sort of significant strategic assets. But if you run your own campaign that you want to win, that you don't want to just have fun with the naval battles, then I would suggest that you basically run from anything that's not strategically important to sink. The last of okay, we are getting into some of the more tactical advice, and I'm going to use Boise here and the Sendai here to show it off. The first tactical advice is cross AT. It's a very old advice. It's still very good advice. So go on and cross AT. The second one is if you have a plane in the area, get it out and get it up there with the speed, and if the conditions are good, let it run over your enemy. And the reason for that is twofold. One, it will distract its lower caliber and AAA guns, because very often the AI will target the plane that can't do anything to it over the ship that can do lots of things to it. So it's really something that's worthwhile. Also, it allows you to watch for torpedoes from a better perspective than just from the enemy ship. And if you've switched off the ability to view things from the enemy unit's perspective, then the plane is really invaluable for monitoring the torpedoes. You can see how quickly the Boise is going to destroy the Sendai, and yeah, it's a Boise. That's all I can say. The other generic tactical advice that I would give you is concentrate on targets. Do not split your fire. You can split your fire from your destroyers. They can't do really that much, so them shooting at other destroyers is okay. But everyone else should have sort of well-defined targets, and you should know why you are going to sink it. I'm going to stop probably firing this because she is going to die on her own now. So if there is a heavy cruiser and you have a Sendai, if there is a heavy cruiser and you have a Boise, go and tell it to attack the heavy cruiser. It will help, and the heavy cruiser is the highest threat for you. It's sinking destroyers, which are 10,000 yards away, is not that much of a help. It's sinking destroyers, which are charging at you, preparing for torpedo attack, different story. You want to sink those destroyers very, very quickly, so having someone like Boise targeting them is very, very important. But that's where you need really to be able to say, okay, what is my targets? What my targets are, why it is important to sink them, and understand all of those things. And that's probably a bit too much for just a short tutorial. That's more like a naval tactics everything, naval tactics 101. There is one more point I wanted to make about firing and selecting targets. You can see now I see a slightly different scenario with a Sendai here and a Momi destroyer here. As you know, Momi is probably one of the weakest destroyers, but guess what we are firing at with the Boise? Minekaze, sorry, not Momi, Minekaze. Anyways, let me just turn Boise. So Momi is firing it out. She gets a lucky hit in the funnel, so that's actually hits something. But I don't care about Minekaze. Minekaze is not going to do much damage to me, if any. It's Sendai that I need to hit. It's Sendai that would cause me trouble with her 8 guns or something. Yeah, it's very nice seeing that Minekaze here is being effectively flattened and destroyed, but there were no hits on Sendai. And that's not great. It's far from great. In the meanwhile, I was being hit by the unopposed fire from Sendai. Being damaged allows me to do one extra thing, and that's talk about repairs and assign repairs during the battle. there is really one rule of repairs, which is fires first. Fires are what will spread on its own volition. Nothing else will. Fires will spread. And you really don't want those fires to spread, because the moment they get to the magazine and the magazine gets destroyed, your ship blows up. So if you are damaged, fires are what, like here. Sometimes the AI will prioritize fires, and that's when it has empty slot. Sometimes it will not. So you really need to watch for that. Now we've hit it as well. And see, the AI is ignoring these fires, letting them run, repairing things like these cells, which are irrelevant, and only moving on once something else has been repaired. I probably wouldn't move in a real battle. I wouldn't move from these cells, because these cells will be finished repairing in a few moments, and it's not worth. In those 10-20 seconds, it will not really get. The fire won't get worse, but if it's 127, I'll move it on this, because this is much more important to fix. It slows me down, it drops efficiency, and yeah, it takes a bit longer than this, but so here, another example. There is 40 seconds here and a fire. This is actually a pretty hard call. I would probably leave it as is at the moment, and especially since this is actually 20 seconds, so yeah, sometimes you just have to look at what is being repaired and how it's being repaired, and monitor, because really it does make a lot of difference. One thing you will notice once we think this Sendai as well, actually, this is the targeting Minikaze, so I'm still not totally correctly targeting. I probably could have jumped just fire, and had my secondaries target Sendai as well, which is another thing that is easy to forget while you're doing it. You have primary 10 secondaries, you really need to deal with both. Okay, this is not something that you want to do. 87, 134, 69, 103. This is a tricky one. I would probably move on fires, because you really need to get these fires on, and you do not have enough now to control all the fires. Yes, that means that it will take a long time to fix this flooding, but flooding doesn't spread on its own, fire does. So you really want to spread those fires, and at this stage I would probably actually slow down, because the faster you go, the more the fires will spread. So you don't want to be racing away if you don't have to, at full tilt if you have lots of fires. Another thing to look at now here is we've run already to a third of our ammunition, as you can see here. It was a very nice magazine explosion. So used about 1200, if I remember right, in the front magazine. It used to be about 700 here. So we run through about a third of our ammunition already. And that was a relatively short 8 minutes fight that we are doing. This episode is getting a bit much longer than I expected. So I will do one last observation, which is no target here. I was manually targeted, and that means that this Minikaze, even though it's still there, my ship will happily ignore it. Therefore, if you are manually targeting something, you need to make sure that you will switch. Either you go back and say, okay, attack whoever, or manually retarget. Again, watch out with fire at will. Fire at will attack the nearest ship. Light cruisers will attack destroyers. Only then they will switch to light cruisers or heavy cruisers and so on. The prioritization is basically target the nearest ship of the same class, or for the lower class or same class-ish as you are. So heavy cruisers will target heavy cruisers, but light cruisers will primarily concentrate on destroyers. And that's not really something that you want at this distance. You want to kill the light cruisers, or if it was a heavy cruiser here, you want to kill the heavy cruiser. Anyway, that's it for this. I already have recorded a good part of the second tips and tricks specific to specific units or units specific classes. So hopefully that will go out soon as well. In the meanwhile, hope you've enjoyed this, and I will see you with the next one. Thank you and goodbye.